Merry Christmas. It is settled. Whoever the heck the Chiefs just threw out there at quarterback is not as good as the number 19 they threw out there at quarterback in the mid-1990s. It was number 19 today. I'd never heard of the guy, and I wasn't paying that close of attention to Kansas City losing to Denver. The Chiefs, by the way, before we get into the Lions, eliminated from the NFC race. Brock Purdy might have ended them a couple years ago in the NFC Championship game, but the fact they don't have Brock Purdy, the fact they have Jared Goff, that hurts the Lions. But before we get into that, I do have to mention that last year when the 49ers were in their post-Super Bowl loss nightmare hangover season, there was a lot of talk about, that this would never happen to Andy Reid. This would never happen to Patrick Mahomes. This would never happen to the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City now, 1 year later, they grab the 40. They say, hold my beer. 49ers grab their beer. The Chiefs are 6-10. The 49ers won 6-11 in 2024. The Chiefs in their nightmare post-Super Bowl loss season are 6-10. They may escape the clutches of 6-11 because they have a chance to play the Raiders, but it also is a draft tanking game next week. So who knows who's going to win that game against the Raiders to finish the regular season. But the Chiefs may well go 6-11, same record as the 49ers. It just goes to show you that no one is immune in the National Football League to a down season, especially after a Super Bowl loss where you take that emotional stomach punch. And yes, in this league, you can age out really quickly. You've got to constantly cycle through, especially the margins of the roster. You've got to make sure that you've got some hungry youth there. 49ers took their medicine over the course of the offseason heading into 2025. And it really looks like the Chiefs need to take some medicine now because that team aged out very quickly heading into 2025. They suffered from a severe lack of depth. They didn't get the one-score games that they did the year before. You can talk about the officiating in that regard. I think that might have had something to do with it with Kansas City because they're winning a suspicious amount of one-score games in 2024. I think they went 12-0 one-score games. That's logic should tell you that's impossible in the NFL without a little bit of help. They didn't get that help in 2025. They didn't get it in the Super Bowl with no holding calls protecting Patrick Mahomes and company, and the Eagles ran them over, and the Chiefs are in a 6-11 or on track for potential 6-11 season. They are 6-10. Anyway, and they had to play this guy right here, except not Joe Montana. They had to play a number 19 at quarterback that wasn't Joe Montana, and they lose to the Broncos. On to the Lions, who are now officially eliminated from the playoff picture. And I don't think it's all that shocking. Let's take a look at the playoff picture. The only spot that's left to be determined is that NFC South champion spot, but 6 of the 7 teams are now secured in the NFC playoffs. Obviously, Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Green Bay. The Packers, by way of the Lions' loss to the Minnesota Vikings, have secured their spot in the NFC playoffs. The Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be fighting it out for that number 4 seed because that's going to be the NFC South champion. Tampa Bay and Carolina play in Florida to close the season, but that is not until the following Sunday past this one. So that's not going to be determined for quite a bit. Carolina plays the Seattle Seahawks this weekend. And Carolina is ahead of Tampa right now. So even if Carolina loses, that division is going to come down to that final weekend game. Anyway, the rest of the field is set. The Lions are not going to be part of it. Some national media acting shocked that the Lions aren't going to be part of it. I, for one, am not shocked. I see all the way back to when they lost Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, and when they lost Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, to head coaching jobs. I thought that might be the end of the Lions, at least as an elite team. And that's exactly what happened. Detroit is 8-8. They might salvage an above 500 season, or they might finish under 500. But this team was no better than a 500 team. And it's because they lost the main drivers of what was happening. Dan Campbell has a losing record without Ben Johnson around. Jared Goff has a losing record without Ben Johnson around. And, let's take a look at this from today's game. This is the efficiency chart where Jared Goff was very nearly outplayed by Max Brosmer of the Minnesota Vikings. Brosmer is a little bit like the number 19 that we saw for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's the guy that nobody's ever heard of before. And I just cannot believe that there were people who are trying to tell me up to a couple days ago that Jared Goff was somehow a comparable quarterback to Brock Purdy. That, Purdy might be a little bit better. I mean, up until not that long ago, people were saying that Goff was better than Purdy, which was insanity. But up until a couple days ago, because Purdy had been on this heater, and I think that people have recency bias, so they were starting to skew a little bit more toward Brock. They were trying to say that Goff is not all that much worse than Brock Purdy. Well, Brock Purdy has never delivered a game as bad as the one that you just saw from Jared Goff. 5 giveaways in an elimination game against a bad Minnesota Vikings team. I don't care if it was a Brian Flores defense or not. 5 giveaways, everything on the line for the Lions. Jared Goff just threw up all over himself. And we can go to, look at his EPA per play, negative 0.48 EPA per play. That is terrible. Let's go to Brock Purdy's career. Let's see if there's ever been a game worse than negative 0.48 EPA per play. This is his entire career. Green is good, red is bad. Immediately, people are going to look toward the Ravens game right here, negative 0.4 EPA per play. Even that disaster against the Ravens, which came on Christmas 2 years ago, we're on the 2-year anniversary, even that game was not as bad as what Jared Goff did today. You could also see this one was bad, obviously, too, but this shouldn't really count. That was the NFC Championship against the Eagles where Purdy hurt his elbow. So that number is obviously skewed because he only got a few plays in that game, one of which was a fumble on the play where he hurt his elbow that was recovered by the Eagles. So what you see here is a career that features only very rare bad games from Brock Purdy. Almost everything is in the green. Every single game this year, including the 3-interception performance against the Carolina Panthers, is in the green, is positive efficiency for Purdy. I mean, there's a reason why this guy's a top 5 quarterback, one of the best in the entire league. It's because he's got an extremely high performance floor. And even the very, very worst that we've seen from Purdy in terms of efficiency in a game was better than what we saw today from Jared Goff. There is no comparison between those two quarterbacks. Goff is immobile. Goff is reliant on his system. Goff was reliant on Ben Johnson being there. The team has fallen off of a cliff. They might finish with a losing record. Meanwhile, Brock Purdy has obviously elevated the 49ers system. He's obviously one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the game. He's the hardest quarterback to sack in the game. The only reason that I want to bring this up is it's such a lightning rod, right, with Purdy. Everyone tries to take these former first-round picks and say that despite having accomplished less than the 49ers quarterback, they're better than him. Everybody said, well, if there was a draft today, Goff would get picked ahead of Brock Purdy. The hell he wouldn't. There's no way anyone would pick Jared Goff over Brock Purdy to be on their football team. And I think that I really hope that what you saw out on that field today in Minnesota in perfect conditions with perfect weather helped illustrate that very cleanly. There's never been a game that Brock Purdy has played in perfect conditions, in perfect weather, that came remotely close to how bad of a performance that was from Jared Goff. And the only game in Brock Purdy's career that efficiency-wise came close, but wasn't quite as bad, was that Ravens game, and there was not nearly as much on the line for the 49ers, who ended up getting the number 1 seed anyway 2 years ago, right on Christmas Day. So I think that should just lay it out there very clearly that there are levels to this. Purdy's a top 5 guy. Purdy's one of the elite guys in the game. I mean, he ranks number 1 across the board this year. He was number 1 across the board in 2023. So it's 2 out of 3 years he's been ranked number 1 in all of these advanced numbers that help take the eye test out of it. But there are levels to this because there are guys at Purdy's level, and there are not many of them. And then there are your average Joes who are at Jared Goff's level. Everything has to be good around them. You have to have a powerful run game. You have to have an excellent offensive line. And you have to have a really good coordinator. The Lions had a good defense too, up until Aiden Hutchinson got hurt last year. The guys that have everything around them, yeah, you could be a mediocre guy like a Jared Goff in this league. But to actually elevate a team, to actually take things to another level from the quarterback position, you have to have that mobility. And that's where somebody like Brock Purdy differentiates himself. So just a way, I think, right now to view this and take a lesson from today's games. Hopefully that helps the common fan understand what makes Purdy so special, despite the fact that there are so many people out there saying that he's just a system guy. Well, he obviously isn't, because the results are not like Jared Goff's results when Brock Purdy is out there playing. I mean, even last year, Purdy ended up ranked number 7 in QBR. Jared Goff is not going to end up ranked number 7 in QBR this season, with a lot of things failing around him. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the standings, some of the impact of today. It was a little bit of a letdown schedule-wise today. Obviously, the NFL could not have known this when they made the schedule for Christmas, and you can't just change it all around. But the Cowboys and the Commanders played in a meaningless game earlier today. Dallas improves to 7-8-1. They're in that 10 spot. They're obviously eliminated. Everybody except for Carolina and Tampa Bay is either securely in the playoffs or is eliminated. We did see Deebo Samuel run over defensive back of the Dallas Cowboys in that game. So I guess some things never change. Deebo Samuel showing up to level Dallas is a thing. I still remember the 2021 season and that playoff game at Jerry World, where Deebo Samuel just went absolutely crazy, and the 49ers beat the Dallas Cowboys, who were the number 1 seed that year. That was an upset over the number 1 seed in 2020. Well, it was January 2022, but the 2021 season, that was the big Deebo season that led to him getting paid in that offseason. Then we saw the second game. We saw the Lions somehow lose by a lot to the Minnesota Vikings, and it was because Jared Goff was Goffle. He was just Goffle. I guess that's how we have to describe it. And it was an embarrassing performance from a Lions team that is not going to beat the allegations anytime soon. That the loss of Ben Johnson just completely sunk everything that they were doing. I mean, they go from the number 1 seed, dominant throughout the regular season last year, to a team that didn't lose because of its offense in the playoffs. They lost to Washington because they couldn't stop Washington. So you could have traced it all the way back to Aiden Hutchinson. But the way that they have fallen from grace this season really, really does indicate that Ben Johnson was the secret sauce for the Detroit Lions. And it just so happens that the 49ers are going to be facing Ben Johnson this weekend. And Ben Johnson, I think he's one of the brightest coaches in the league. He's taken over the Bears. He's turned them around, helped turn Caleb Williams' career trajectory around. 11-4 record for Chicago. Ben Johnson is a good person to listen to when it comes to appraising where the 49ers are as a football team. So let's listen to Ben Johnson at a Bears press conference this week.
The Niners last night obviously looked pretty impressive, especially on offense. So what jumped out to you watching the game?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're playing high-level football, and, last few weeks, it's 5-game winning streak, and I think they're averaging over 30 points a game during that span. 48 last night. They haven't punted the ball in a bit, and so, I think Shanahan is one of the best, if not the best, in the business in terms of doing this, calling plays at a high level for as long as he has. He's probably the first to truly marry that run game and the pass game, as well as you see some of these other teams doing it now. He was kind of the front runner on all that stuff. And so you always like to turn on that San Francisco tape each week, whether you're playing them or not, just to look at some of the stuff that they're doing. And it's changed a little bit. It used to be where they were always the number one team in the NFL in terms of rushing, and it's not to say that they don't still have that ability. They do, but it's kind of morphed a little bit, and they might be a more dangerous passing team right now. And so that's kind of the interesting thing when you watch their tape. Purdy's playing at a high level. Kittle's a problem for us. McCaffrey is a major problem. It's just kind of unorthodox a little bit that you got the tight end and the running back as the guys that concern you the most. And yet, Purdy does a great job finding the receivers as well. So we got a tall task ahead of us. I know our guys are looking forward to the challenge. A lot of stuff going on this week with distractions potentially and things of that nature. But I think it'll be a good thing for us to go on the road and just really be able to focus in on this game.
So that Ben Johnson impresses the hell out of me. Every single time that I watch him, he is so on top of everything, not just with his team, but who he's playing. I've been watching a lot of his pressers this year, and he is impressive. And he just gave a summary of the 49ers that's more accurate than 98% of 49ers content on the internet that's created by people who purportedly follow this team every day. Like, a lot of those people just make stuff up, or they don't really understand football. They don't understand what's going on. And you listen to them for a minute or two and you're like, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Ben Johnson is coaching the Chicago Bears, so he's obviously got his hands full there. He just gave a synopsis of the 49ers in about a minute and a half that is more accurate than anything outside of this channel talking about the 49ers. I have to say, like, he talked about the fact that the pass game for San Francisco is now the driver of the offense instead of the run game. There are still so many people in the national media stuck on the notion that the 49ers run game somehow runs the show, when that's just not true. I mean, we have all the numbers here. I think this is always fascinating to look at. You can look at there's Ben Johnson, but we're going to open this up instead. You look at the efficiency rankings for offenses, and here are the 49ers. We're going to highlight them. They're number 8 overall. Now, this includes the whole season. They're number 1 ever since Brock Purdy returned. But I just want to show you guys the splits for the whole year, because if we sort this by drop back EPA, and I think I'm going to have to refresh this really quickly so we can sort this. But if we sort it by passing EPA, the numbers are actually better in that column than they are in the running column. And the run column was down in the 20s for part of this year before finally moving up a little bit. Okay, now I'm sortable at this point, so we can get this back up on the screen. Here we go. So 49ers are drop back EPA. As you can see here, they're ranked number 5. If I sort it by running EPA, 49ers are down at number 12. So again, passing EPA, number 5. Running EPA, number 12. Typically in the past, San Francisco had been a team whose drop back and rushing EPA were either relatively even, or the rushing EPA was a little bit better than the passing EPA. But it's definitely a pass forward offense at this point. Now, we can also limit the sample size to the weeks since Brock Purdy returned. I'm going to do that really quickly. So I just selected weeks 11 to 18. We're going to let this. Okay, so now this is refreshed. We can see the 49ers are now ranked as the number 1 offense in all football. That's exactly what Ben Johnson alluded to. He knows what he's talking about. Ever since Purdy returned, they're averaging over 30 points a game. To be exact, 34 points per game ever since Brock Purdy returned in week 11. Now, how does it sort by drop back EPA? Number 2 in the league ever since Purdy returned, behind only Green Bay. Packers are on a little bit of a heater there with Jordan Love over the past few games. How does the 49ers run game rank since Purdy returned? Number 5. So as you can see, they've been top 5 in both run and pass, but the 49ers are higher ranked in the pass game than they are in the run game. If you want to see that visualized on the graph up here, further to the right means better passing offense. Further up means better running offense. So you want to be in that top right corner. And look where the 49ers are in the top right corner. In case you need this visualized a little bit bigger here, I can do that for you. I think this might be useful. There you go. Do you guys see the 49ers logo? Zoom in on it. Upper right. This is what it looked like in 2023, for example. And then Ben Johnson went further into it, and he said, it's crazy that the 49ers are doing this despite the fact that they're running their offense through a running back and a tight end. We're more worried about Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, he said, than the receivers. And that's an insane credit to both Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. It's very true, by the way. I've shown you guys the yards per route run distribution of the 49ers offense, and it's McCaffrey and Kittle who are the primary guys at the top. The receivers are all below average. Ricky Pearsall, unfortunately, was above average, but then he got hurt in week 4, and we haven't seen too much of Ricky Pearsall. Whenever he's been available, yes, they've had that receiving threat to stretch the field. But when Pearsall hasn't been available because of the absence of Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers have been well below average at receiver. They generate only on average, the number 25 ranked separation in the entire league at the time of catch or incompletion, yet they're still producing at these extremely impressive clips offensively. And that goes back to what Purdy's been able to do. And as Ben Johnson said, it goes back to his connection with George Kittle and with Christian McCaffrey. Now, the big potential wrench entering this weekend's game against the Bears is that Kittle might not be available. At the best, he's probably going to be listed as questionable for the 49ers when they release the final injury report tomorrow. And I'm going to be there at Levi Stadium, and we'll see if George Kittle takes the practice field. We'll see if San Francisco gets a little bit of provides a little glimmer of hope in that direction. But I think that even if he doesn't practice tomorrow, I've said this over the course of this week, there's still a chance he's going to play on Sunday. It's that important of a game. It basically carries the weight of half a playoff game, because if you win this one and you win against Seattle, you win a playoff game, you skip the wild card round with the number 1 seed. So I think that all will go into it. I think that if Kittle does play on Sunday, it's going to be on a lot of rest and minimal practice. So you could throw some of the normal practice customs out the window, like, oh, he didn't practice on Thursday, he's not going to play. I don't think that's actually going to apply this week. But I think that we're going to be on pins and needles until close to game time regarding George Kittle's status. Anyway, Ben Johnson's very worried about him. Ben Johnson's very worried about Christian McCaffrey. If the 49ers don't have Kittle, they will definitely be leaning on Ricky Pearsall to carry a lot of the load space-making wise at the wide receiver position. I'm not so sure they can win this game without both Kittle and Pearsall. I think if they've got one of the two, and if Ricky shows up to play, and he did against the Tennessee Titans 2 weeks ago, I think that's when the 49ers can continue to make some hay. And it's all up to Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan to keep things clicking, even while different important pieces are rotating in and out of the lineup. I mean, Tom Brady was able to do that effectively for years. That's something Brock Purdy has done effectively now for the 3+ seasons as the 49ers quarterback. And he's going to be tasked with doing it effectively to some level again during Sunday's game. But I do think that firepower-wise, you're going to need one of the two, because it all comes down to creating space offensively. And if you don't have Pearsall, you don't have Kittle, all of a sudden that shrinks the field a lot. And then the 49ers would have to just get into a bar fight against the Bears. Can you win a bar fight? Of course. You've got Christian McCaffrey on your team. You can still run the football if you're the 49ers. But it is something that's going to be, at the very least, it would wipe away the 49ers' advantage on paper in this game. I do think that they are better than the Bears. But, of course, the short week and some of these injuries would compromise that and turn this into a little bit more of a toss-up. The Christmas gifts, by the way, it is Christmas. I talked about this in the previous video I put up, but I think that it's really worth it to put this up again. Talk about the Rolexes that Brock Purdy got his offensive line and the T-shirts that Mac Jones got the offensive line. I mean, talk about solidification as the most elite quarterback room in the NFL. We knew that this was the best QB room in the NFL. I mean, Purdy and Jones are both ranked in the top 4 of success rate. But that's one thing. You know, to perform that way on the field is one thing. To be able to deliver this way off the field for your offensive linemen, not just as QB1, but as QB2 as well, that's a whole other thing. First, a look at the Rolexes. This is on Matt Hennessy's Instagram. Said that this is the best gift ever from Brock Purdy. Well, it's the best gift ever until this T-shirt. Now, I mean, nobody's saying that a T-shirt's better than a Rolex until you see the T-shirt. protectors of Glock Purdy and Mac 10 for the 49ers offensive lineman. Now, my big question is that a espresso machine with the t-shirts? Because if it's, the espresso machine is coming with the shirts, that Mike says that machine is worth $700. So I think that Mac Jones did not only come through with t-shirts, I think he came through with an espresso machine and these t-shirts, which he should start selling online because this is a nice design. I think a lot of Niners fans would buy these. I mean, you guys can give me a thumbs up if you would like one of these shirts, and I'll let Mac know in the locker room that he should put them online. Anyway, nice gift, especially if it's both of those things. And then there was the Rolex from Purdy, which also is engraved with the offensive lineman's number. Now, this is on Matt Hennessy's Instagram. So he's number 61, 49ers backup center. Purdy's number 13, and then bang, bang in the middle. Now, that's obviously several $1,000s, the Rolex. I wish I don't have my watch on right now. I may have to run up and get my watch. When I first showed off the Rolex in the first show, I showed off my watch. I'm really proud of it. It's a gift from Lombardi herself. It's as nice as these watches, for sure. That's what I wear at all the games. But and it also has some engraving action on it, but it doesn't say 61 bang bang 13 on my watch. This is only for the 49ers offensive lineman. This is over $100,000 in Rolexes, Mike estimates, combined. Yeah, well, I mean, if he's getting them for all the offensive linemen, I'm guessing he's getting them for some of the backup guys as well. It's a lot of money that Brock Purdy spent. And, last year Toyota hooked him up, and that was before he had signed the big contract, and he gave up all the trucks through Toyota to the linemen. This year, he upgrades the Rolexes after he is signed for that big deal. Another way that Brock Purdy clears Jared Goff. I just cannot believe that I had to have this discussion, especially since in the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago, you saw the difference between Brock and Jared Goff, like on the field in a self-contained one-game environment. The difference in the NFC Championship game, that 2023 season, was that the 49ers had Purdy and the Lions had Goff. One of those guys could get away from a pass rush, extend plays, lead a comeback. The other one couldn't. The other one was a duck in the water the second that things started snowballing against him. And a lot snowballed against Purdy in that game, and he wasn't a duck in the water. And, I mean, everything from the data point of that NFC Championship game to the avalanche of statistics that we have, there's such a wide breadth of them, and Purdy is number one across the board, has always ranked higher than Jared Goff. The only reason that people say, it's kind of close between these two guys, the only reason is because Jared Goff was a number one pick back in 2016, a long time ago, and that Brock Purdy was picked number 262. These people cannot let go of draftism. It is bias based on draft positioning. And you know what? It's really, really time to let go of it, because what Purdy has done, and this is a sample over the course of his entire career, is absolutely special. I have him circled there. You want to be further to the right, further up on this chart. And Purdy's been the most efficient quarterback in football. He's been the best quarterback in football since he's joined in 2022. I'm not saying that Goff has been as bad as he was tonight over the course of all these years since 2022, since he joined the Lions in 2021 was when that tenure started. He's been like an upper right guy. He hasn't been a bad quarterback, but it's obviously been very system driven, as we can see during moments where things go off script, and it hasn't been nearly as good as Brock Purdy. He's been fine, not tonight, but he's been fine. He's been an average Joe with a good system around him. Brock Purdy, though, has been a transcendent quarterback. To be this high up in the right, teams would stop you if there was a foolproof way to stop you. By now, they would have stopped Brock Purdy. They absolutely haven't, and he deserves his flowers. He deserves his respect, and I'm going to say I told you so for as long as I have to, until the very last naysayers are completely eradicated. Because what matters to me is truth. What matters to me is objectivity. Looking at these quarterbacks, it's a meritocracy. You should be judged by what you have accomplished on the football field. Like, what does the actual data say about your performance? For Purdy, it says that he's been the best quarterback, the most efficient quarterback since 2022. It doesn't say that for Herbert. It doesn't say that for Goff. It doesn't say that for Stafford. It doesn't even say that for Mahomes. Now, once you start talking about Super Bowl titles, I get it. People start talking about championship legacy. So yeah, you tip your cap. Mahomes has notched those Super Bowl wins. So I get it. But if you're talking about efficiency on the field and predicting who's going to be able to carry some championship pedigree moving into the future, like who's the likeliest to do that? Well, it's going to be the guy who has the best efficiency and the best play under his belt over the course of the past 3+ seasons. And it's Brock Purdy. And that's why the 49ers paid him. And that's why they're very, very happy to have him as their quarterback. Mike's got some more from me. Ooh, the 49ers are going to be wearing the throwbacks against Chicago. I think we already knew this, but it's still worth putting up on the screen right here. I think this will make fans excited. 94 Niners throwbacks. Now, one reason that this is cool to me, as kind of a 49ers historian of sort, they played the Bears in the 94 playoffs when they were on their way to beating the Chargers for the Super Bowl. But before they beat the Cowboys in the divisional round, the 49ers played in these uniforms, the 94 throwbacks, at home against the Chicago Bears. They destroyed them. It was a lot to a little. That set up the next week against the Cowboys, which then set up the Super Bowl against the Chargers. The 49ers, in all three of those games, in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, they wore the 94 throwback jerseys. So a little bit of history there for you. I'm actually going to go to that game box score right now. Let's look that up. 1994 49ers Bears. January 7th, 1995. 44-15, San Francisco wins the game. Seifert, obviously the coach of the 49ers. Dave Wanstedt was the coach of the Bears, who finished that season 10-8. The Bears kicked the field goal to score first, but then it was all downhill from there. The quarterback of the Bears was Eric Kramer. Didn't do much on that day. 161 yards. Steve Young had a rushing touchdown that basically started a fight against the Bears. I can remember that. And the 49ers just trampled them. See, we had Doug Bryan on the channel a few days ago, the kicker of that 49ers team. He made a field goal in that game, made 36-yarder. 49ers at one point were up 44-9 against Chicago. Doug Bryan kicked an NFL record, I think, 17 or 18 extra points in that postseason. And many of those extra points came on that afternoon at Candlestick against the Chicago Bears. All right, whether you want to talk about the showdown, 49ers and Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears, or if you want to talk about the Christmas Day games and react to them, I'm all ears for anything. I'm flying to San Francisco tomorrow morning, and I am tuning into the comment section right now to see what you guys have to say. Wow, another power outage. So now there's a power outage in the southeast of San Francisco. Jeffrey's family on Christmas does not have power. I'm sorry to hear that. Thanks for your super chat. I wish I could send you $10, man. Next time that we have a little fan gathering, I'm going to buy you a beer. How's that? Since it sounds like you're in the city. So make sure to keep on watching. All the best. Merry Christmas to Jeffrey and his family. Hope everything is okay. Everybody stays safe without the power in Southeast San Francisco. When I left town a few days ago, there was the complete chaos, the power outage chaos. Not complete, but a lot of the western half of the city had some issues. Luckily, where we are did not have issues. I was able to get to the airport, but I do feel for those of you who have had your lives inconvenienced. It does seem like a total mess back in the city. People are talking, yeah, they're going to be wearing the rivalry jerseys for the Seahawks game. And these 94 throwbacks for this game against the Chicago Bears. So The playoffs, if the 49ers get the 1 seed, we'll see the standard 49ers jerseys, the gold pants and the red tops and the saloon font and the paint, the red paint behind the saloon font. That's going to happen for the postseason if the 49ers can win the next 2 games. If that doesn't happen, though, then they're going to have to go on the road and probably won't host a postseason game. So in order for the 49ers to see their uniforms, how was the Super Bowl last year? Who wore what in the Super Bowl? I'm wondering, the 49ers may have to wear white at home in the Super Bowl this year, which would be weird if they made the Super Bowl. Let me go back to Chiefs, Eagles, Super Bowl photos. I forgot who wore what. Oh, yeah, this is not good. The Eagles wore their home jerseys during the Super Bowl last year, which means that the NFC team wore its home jersey. So this year, the NFC team would wear its away jerseys. So if the 49ers make the Super Bowl this year, they're going to have to play in the Super Bowl wearing their white jerseys. I mean, I think that fans would take that trade-off. I just think it's weird. Like that's a problem that you cross the bridge when you get to the Super Bowl. I think the Bucks play in white at home a lot because of the heat in Tampa. When they played at home in the Super Bowl, they didn't have many fans there, first and foremost. That was the 2020 season, but I think they played in white as well. But when the 49ers played at Stanford Stadium to close the 84 season, they got to wear their red uniforms at home. And that, up until the whole Bucks thing in 2020 was considered the closest the team had played to home in a Super Bowl, and I think it was fitting that the 49ers played in red. Anyway, that's something I'll bring up. I'll make a whole show about that. I promise if the 49ers make the Super Bowl, I'm sure that people will want that at the time. I don't think that you guys want me droning on about uniform color in the Super Bowl. The 49ers are still 4 wins away from getting to that point. 4 home wins in a row. They will get to that point. I love it right here. Thank you, David. The word means everything to me. Meritocracy, all caps. In life, meritocracy is how everything should be, period. Can't understand the mindset of those who try to make things otherwise. Yes, I might take this. I might make a few tweets about this tomorrow on my flight. It is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of people saying, oh, Justin Herbert, I would rather take him. I'd rather take Jared Goff. That's ridiculous. But I'd rather take Jordan Love when they've accomplished less than Brock Purdy. I don't care about projections. I don't care about measurables. I don't care about any of that. I don't care where you had this guy slotted in the draft. What you do in this league and in this world is judged by merit. Like that's, if we're starting to look at quarterbacks based on what we think they might be, then we get right to the very spot that had people mess up on Brock Purdy in the NFL draft. At some point, you have to stop with, I get it. The draft is about projection, but at some point after the draft, you have to stop worrying about where a guy was picked. And I think that needs to happen like right away, the day after the draft. And Bill Walsh was very good at that. You read all of Bill Walsh's stuff and he talks about, I don't care where a guy was drafted. I hate hearing about him being a 3rd or 4th round pick. I'm going to see what he does on the actual football field. Then any ranking that you make for any quarterback should absolutely not be tied to what you think that guy might be in the future. Because guess what? You don't know what he's going to be in the future. You have no idea what he's going to be in the future. In fact, if you speak in those terms, you're speaking in terms that were foreign to Bill Walsh. So I think that you know a lot less about football than somebody like Bill Walsh. And I'll just say you probably don't know much of anything about football if you're starting to speak in those terms. You have to judge players by what they've actually accomplished. And when it comes to Brock Purdy, he has accomplished more statistically than any other quarterback in football. And these are not simple statistics. These are advanced statistics that help us parse efficiency. And he's at the very top of the list, period. End of argument. Anything outside of this argument, if you're starting to come and say, oh, well, Baker Mayfield this or Justin Herbert that, Daniel Jones, I don't know, whichever guy you want to pick, it's not a good argument because it's not based on meritocracy. And meritocracy is the way that it is in football and the way that it absolutely should be when we evaluate where players rank in this league. That's how all legacy arguments are settled at the end of the day, is meritocracy, right? When we decide who goes into the Hall of Fame and who doesn't, we look at a list of accomplishments. We don't look at what they might do moving forward into the future. We look at what they did accomplish. So if we're making rankings right now, if we're trying to evaluate who's better than who, we look at what a quarterback has actually done. And the great irony is that Brock Purdy actually has better physical measurables than a lot of the players who quarterbacks that are put ahead of him on some of these lists. Like, he's got a faster 10-yard split than Jordan Love or Justin Herbert. He can make the same throws outside the numbers. I mean, he just set a record with 4 touchdown passes on outbreakers the other day on Monday Night Football. So he can make the throws. It's about the quickness. That's the differentiating factor. And he has that at a more impressive physical level than the guys that are lazily ranked ahead of him. So I've had enough of it. I'll continue railing against it. We've got momentum in the battle for objectivity and truth. You know, somebody's saying Jared Goff doesn't have the it factor. He just isn't athletic. The it factor typically is the quarterback position is escapability, and Goff doesn't have that. Anyway, Merry Christmas to everybody. It's been a fun show. Wanted to react to some of those games. We will talk to you tomorrow from the 49ers facility. Going to be fun. So Merry Christmas. Hope you enjoyed it with your families. I will talk to you very soon.